On today's show, we talk about when to take an offer that's like that one bird in the hand versus two in the bush. We discuss an easy, memorable way for valuing the letters within a 3, 4, 5 letter.com domain. And we also discuss domains that are false friends, domains that seem like they would be a good investment, but actually may not be. Enjoy the show. Hey, Sherpa Network. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Tess Diaz, executive producer of DomainSherpa.com, and this is the Domain Sherpa Review. This is the show where we get into the minds of successful domain name investors using real examples so we can learn strategies and tactics to become better investors ourselves. We have 3 segments to the review. We'll start off learning what the Sherpas recently bought or sold. Next, we'll discuss in value an investor-submitted domain name portfolio. And finally, we'll preview some domains going to auction soon at NameJet.com and whether the Sherpas think they're a good investment opportunity for you. Joining us today on the Domain Sherpa Review are 3 past Sherpas and industry thought leaders. We're delighted to have you back, David. It's been a while and wonderful to have you. Welcome, David Clements.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah. Shane, great to see you at NamesCon in Las Vegas. Welcome back.
Thanks. Nice to see you. It's only been a couple days.
Yeah, it's been real quick. And Drew, your flight probably has barely over. Welcome back, Andrew Rosener.
Thank you.
Great to have you guys. Let's jump in to the show right off today. What's new, Sherpas, where you're going to share one purchase or sale you've made over the past few weeks, and we'll learn what you paid or received for the domain, why you thought it was a good deal, and how the negotiations progressed. That's usually the most interesting part. Remember, don't say what you paid. Shane, you are up first on this one. What's new, Shane?
Well, nothing's really changed since I'm glad to be home. I was gone for almost 3 weeks, so it was nice to sleep in my own bed, and my body just gave out. Once I was trying so hard not to get sick or tired during the whole trip, but man, it was, hours of flights and seeing everybody names, kind of a couple 4:30, 4 a.m. nights, and I held on. But as soon as I got home, my body just, it kicked my ass. It just, it's been a tough couple days. So. And the weather in Chicago was, I stayed in Vegas. As a lot of people don't know, there were a couple of us that stayed in Vegas an extra day or two because we couldn't. All flights to Chicago were canceled. So I got to spend some time with some people after the show. That was nice as well. But we're back to the normal routine, and that's a good thing sometimes.
That is good. Now, so you were doing your charity work in Kenya and flew straight from there to Vegas and then back home to Illinois. How long was the flight, and how many layovers did you have?
So I wasn't hearing Drew's complaining at all from going from Vegas to. So I took a 2-hour bus, and then an hour propeller flight, then an 8-hour flight from Nairobi to London, then a 9-hour flight to Chicago. Dropped my wife off. We went and got the car. She drove me back to the airport. I switched suitcases out, then hopped on another plane and flew 4 more hours to Vegas.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. 31 hours of travel. But I will say, Drew, you got to get the priority pass card. That means every airport you get the lounges. So you walk in, free food, shower, sleep.
Yeah, so I've actually got it. And they sent the problem was that mine was expired. And they sent the new one, but it went to my mom. And my mom has not sent it to me.
Your mom's in the lounge in there.
Yeah. So my mom's chilling in the lounge, and I'm...
Yeah. It was a godsend, no doubt about it. Being able to not sit in a chair in the regular common waiting area was.
It was really strange. Whatever. Anyways.
Yeah. King Cultra, above the commoners. Is that?
Well, it was funny because the CEO of Escrow, he was saying, there's another level of that. And he was pointing out, I didn't even, it's so elite that I didn't even know there was another level above. He said, only certain people can get in. I go, well, I have a new goal now. The executive club.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's he was told me how to get in. Like I had to be a politician or a CEO or something. And I was like, well, I'll get the rules and start working on it.
All right.
It's
CEO of DSAD.
Yeah, exactly.
Quad goals.
I've got plenty of employees. But yeah, so it's good to be back. And so I did have one domain that I sold while we were at NamesCon, and it was Chosen, but it's spelled CHOZN.com.
Chosen. CHOZN.com.
Cool way to spell chosen.
Clearly. David, Drew, what do you guys think he sold Chosen for?
I'm going to say $2,888.
Okay, if I get to pick second, I'll say $2,889.
All right. So we have a pretty close consensus on the value here.
Well, the great part about this is they're both within $1.
No!
No way.
Drew knows. Drew knows that I place pretty much all the 5 L's that aren't special at $2,888. So that's exactly what they sold for. That's
hilarious.
I wasn't going to say it because I knew Drew would be 100% right on the money because he knows how I price them, and I'm not going to change it. I'm going to say that, I said it all show, and Paul Nick said it well. If you've got a 5L and you put it in that sweet spot, it's going to sell. And I bought tons of 5letter.coms back in 2007, or no, 9, 10, $10 a piece, $20 a piece. I put them all at $2,800. I sell 1, 2, 3 every month. It's just $5,000, $7,500 of income every single month, and it's been fantastic. I wouldn't say it's newfound, but it is really, it's really starting hitting over the last couple of years. So, and that's a perfect name that goes on that kind of category. You're not going to sell that for a ton of money. You can hold out forever, but at $2,800, you take it and you look for more names like that and fill the portfolio. So it's worked out well for me. Great source of income.
That's definitely a nice sale.
Yeah. And like I said, they keep coming. You find the right 5letter.coms that you pay. I think, now you're
getting. What are you paying for that? What did you pay for Chosen?
I paid $10, but that was, 8, 9 years ago. Right now I could get Chosen for.
Can't hate on that return.
No. Yeah. And like I said, I bought 100 of them like that. So
So let's say you bought 100 of those, and let's say you sold, over 5 years, you've sold 20 of them. So if you sold 20% over 5 years, you pay, let's say $20 each even. You got $2,000 into it. You're already in the red.
You paid it for, oh yeah. I'm making an average, I paid for it on the first name that I sold.
Yeah.
In the red or in the black, Drew?
I always get confused.
Yeah, he's in the black. I'm in red.
He's in the black.
Yeah.
The black. Yeah.
I always remember red is when the teacher says something bad about you. So red is bad.
Yeah, but for some reason I always had it in my mind that there was some, juxtaposition of those things when it came to accounting.
So it's a good way, and people are still. We talk about this all the time. Josh is good at it, man. He finds all these kind of shorter names you wouldn't think anything of, and you sell 4% or whatever he's selling, and it pays for itself. But the problem is finding those are getting more and more expensive. I'm having to pay $110 to $500 a piece for the exact same names. It can still be done, but now you got to move the price points up higher.
Yeah.
Which decreases sell-through rates.
Exactly, than the sell-through rates. Or you can be happy, I don't think anybody would, if you pay $120 and you sell them at $2,800, that model, if you can replicate that, that model works for me too.
Well, I just pulled up, Shane, you referenced Paul Nix, Vice President of GoDaddy's Aftermarket. You referenced his keynote speech from NamesCon this year, where he really reviewed what GoDaddy is seeing in domain sales trends. And I pulled up this particular slide he had on, average acquisition cost of $50 to $75 a domain, buying 3 to 6 domains a day, pricing for sale at 2,500 to 3,500, and his calculation was optimizing for a 1% annual sell-through. So you did pretty much exactly that, but you're seeing a higher annual sell-through. You're saying out of 100, you sell 3 or 4 a month?
No, I have a 4% annual rate. Okay. But no, on those names, yeah, I'm seeing higher. I'm definitely seeing higher than, you have to look at, I had 100 domains, and 9 years later, I'm almost out of a lot, I'm almost out of the original ones. But I've filled the coffers over the last 9 years. I mean, I've been the 5-letter guy for a while. Now there's tons of people doing it, but I couldn't afford the 3-letter, and the 4-letter ones don't spell as easily. But the 5 letters, you can make lots of brands out of them.
Shane, S-H-A-N-E, the 5-letter guy.
Yeah, even that I get wrong. I always put, hey, here's a 5-letter, and they'll have 6. So
is that why you spelled chosen that way?
Exactly.
No. So do you think so you're seeing a 4% annual sell-through. Why do you think when Paul's example was a 1%, is it that you're more knowledgeable than the average investor? Is it because you got these domains 9 years ago and other investors are just getting them now?
Yeah, I do think I'm better at the average domain investor on what to choose. And I'm not addicted to it, so I don't have to pick up names. I do find a lot of these guys are addicted to picking up names every day, so that they'll pick up names that they normally wouldn't pick up. I really do feel that. Josh will probably be the first one to tell you, if he had to go 3 days without buying names, he would probably go into a conniption fit. Yeah, no doubt about it.
And I'll say from my years at GoDaddy, I certainly saw the same, so that's good. And I do think, clearly we all think that you are smarter than the average investor. That's why you're on this show. Sure.
Well, I don't say I say this on everything in life. There's always somebody better, and there's always somebody worse. So I don't mind being in the middle, and you strive to get better. And that's cliche. You can tell my tweets. I hate cliche talk. Like, I hate talks where they say we hire the best people or we strive for the best. No shit. I mean, that's obviously, I don't know anybody that says, I hire anybody that will take the job. And I just want to make a little money.
We thrive on mediocrity.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a speech that of course. And so on domain investors, I know I better be better. I've been doing it 9 years, 2 hours a day for 9 years straight. If I'm not better than a lot of people, then I'm doing it wrong. So.
Yeah, good call. So last question. You made money. You took absolutely no action at NamesCon, and you just magically received $2,888. And so
the best part about it was, so I flew into Kenya, and it hit on my second day. You get the email in the morning, and I thought, I just paid for the entire trip, because my stay for 12 days with 3 meals was $240. So it didn't cost. My flight was by far my most expensive, but the rest of the trip was paid with 1 domain sale. So literally, if I have one of those a month, I can live in Kenya the rest of my life. We're set.
Wow. Wow. And that was via Afternic?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Afternic put the price in the email. So the complaining of myself and DNY and a couple other bloggers saying, love the emails, but the fact that they can't even put the price in the original email, that I have to go back and, because we don't always remember what we price. Anybody who says they can remember every price is lying. So the first thing you do is you get the email and go, oh, man, I wonder what I priced it at. And you go back and you hope that it's for like $15,000. Now it's in the email, which is very helpful.
Super, super. Very, very good. What's new, Shane? Thank you. David, you are up. What's one domain you've bought or sold lately, no price?
Me personally, or Brandon's?
Whatever you like.
During the show, we actually had a transaction closed for Emir.com. EMIR.
EMIR, Emir.com. And so your transaction closed, did you say acquisition?
While we were at the show at NamesCon.
Okay, but was it an acquisition or a sale?
It was a sale. We brokered the sale of the name.
Okay, so Brannon's brokerage brokered the sale.
Yes. Yes. So
All right.
And before anybody guesses, I guess this might not be a great example because I can't talk about it other than just to say that. I can't talk about the price. The buyer and seller were very happy to get the deal done. Those are my favorite transactions where everybody's at the table, happy, feeling like they're winning. And it was one of those that went really, really smoothly, which is nice. But so that was what we sold. I am curious to know what you guys think it sold for, even if I can't tell you where you're at.
If they get it to the dollar, will you tell them? Just wink twice.
All right. I'm going to say, so Amir.com. So Amir is like a king, right? I mean, it's so
fantastic term.
I'm going to say 300,000.
And yeah, I mean, I agree that it's a fantastic name, especially in the areas that have tons of money, or at least we perceive them to have tons of money.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to have that. I'm going to say 150,000. I mean, it could go anywhere. You know, it just depends.
That's true. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I mean, I would love to say, I'd love to be able to tell you who's closest.
Yeah.
But I'm on pretty strict NDA on this one. It may come to market again. We don't know.
So was it a wholesale buyer?
So that means it wasn't an end user, because the end user wouldn't take it back to market. We got information.
It might not have been sold to an end user. Since it's come up, the Paul Nix presentation really was interesting to me. I caught his keynote before at NamesCon. This was targeted to a different group. Shane, I think this one might have been. Were you in that? You saw that presentation, right?
Paul's?
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was wondering if any of you knew who he was using as his case study, that when they put the prices on the buy now page went from selling 30,000 a month to 150 to 200,000 a month in domain names. I mean,
I have a very good idea of who it was.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you say?
Nope.
No, but
You can't.
I hope you're listening and appreciate that. And please come on the show sometime. He'll never.
So, I mean, it was really interesting. But the buy now price at that level, it works. It seems like, you know, when you pick the prices, put them on there, and you've run the numbers, and this is a price you think you'll sell it for. I see the sell-through rate goes up. You know, I've always worried about leaving money on the table, but I think the way GoDaddy does their tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 names is something that I've kind of taken to heart with pricing, and their tier 1 and tier 2 names over, you know, $25,000 or $50,000. I don't like to price those, but the ones that are under $10,000, I've gotten to where I feel like you price them, they're going to sell. If you got the number on there you're happy with, I mean, what's next?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all different levels in this industry. That's where, when people complain about leaving money on the table, if you can replicate or fill, you know, I look at everything like a business. If I can fill my shelves with something that I can sell for 28 times what I paid for, then I'm going to sell it and fill the shelf again. It's when the shelf gets more expensive to fill and my product is harder, then we'll talk. But anybody who says I left money on the table getting 28 times what I paid for and able to go replenish my portfolio, I'm just not going to listen to it. That's greed. That's pure greed when it comes to that. And they probably are missing out on some sales. So when it's all said and done, we're probably in the same boat.
Right.
But
Well,
that's not all of them. The expensive ones, we don't play that same game.
I don't hear this a lot anywhere in our industry, but the term turns is something that I learned from Home Depot. And, you know, they try and turn their inventory 4 to 10 times per year, because that's how they really make their money, by compounding that profit. And if you're pricing the name,
working on very tight margins,
turning inventory and replenishing it with inventory, and you're selling that again, your turns each year on that money are what really, really makes you the money too.
Yeah. Listen, I am case in point, the poster child for the fact that that is an effective strategy. There are many ways to skin this cat. There are a lot of people making, like, of my, let's say, 10 closest friends in this industry, maybe there's 2 or 3 that overlap in the way that they make their money. And so everybody's got a different angle. Everybody's, there's many different ways to go about this. But as somebody who came into the game very late and wasn't exactly sure what direction to go in, luckily enough, I focused on what I was good at, and I said, okay, well, I know how to sell. I'm not afraid to sell, and not a lot of people in the industry wanted to get out and sell. I said, all right, well, this is a cash flow intensive business. If I'm going to be successful in this, I need cash. I need to be able to start buying up names. And so in order to build our own portfolio late in the game, we launched a domain brokerage business. And between the owner-operated purchasing and selling and the domain brokerage business, just through trial and error, not necessarily being very smart or clever about it, it was just happened to be what worked and was sort of a natural feedback loop. It was like, as long as I can replace what I've got, keep turning it. Even if it's a small, just keep turning it, and the more you turn it, the more money you're going to make. And as long as you focus on 2 things while you're doing that, you will be successful. One is, can I replace what I'm selling at a lower price? And 2 is, when I reinvest this capital, am I buying something better than I sold? And if you continue to do that, you will be successful. I mean, there is no other way. By definition, you will increase the value of your portfolio. You'll increase your cash flow because you're turning names more often. There's a lot of people out there that say, I want $75,000 for this name. And you'll come and you'll say, well, they got a buyer and they're offering 55. And I get 5 and you get 50. And I'm not going to. You bought this domain in 1996. You've been waiting 23 years to sell this domain. So far, nobody has come and offered you $75,000. So either that buyer just didn't show up yet, or you've priced your name wrong. Right? There's only 2 outcomes. Now, I've got somebody offering you 55, and if you take 55 today, in the next 23 years, that 55 grand is worth like 200 grand, 200 and something, 220, 230. So you want to wait 23 more years and hope to get 75, or you want to take 50 today, put it into a freaking index fund, and 23 years from now it's worth 200. You decide. So the bird in the hand, there are situations on those top-notch names where you simply can't replace them, where sometimes it makes sense to just be a bastard and just hold out, take the Rick Schwartz approach. Because I think on the top-notch names, if you're looking at the top 0.1% of .com domain names, the Rick Schwartz approach is the best approach. It will generate the highest return for you. But on the rest of the names, and it's like both of you just said, there's different tiers, and just below that, maybe you don't want to have a buy it now price, but you had better have in your mind what you think that name is worth, so that when somebody comes knocking, you can engage.
Yeah, and we do
don't
often.
Be evasive. If somebody wants to buy something from you, don't be evasive. Like, I don't know if I want to set cut through it. Be confident in what you think the name is worth. Either you guys agree or you don't. But being evasive doesn't get you anywhere. You just waste people's time. People get annoyed and move on just for the sheer sake that you're a domain investor, they don't like you, and so you're not going to be cut and dry with your negotiation. Moving on, right? Even me as a broker, and I'm sure some of the audience is people that I do this to, but it's like I come to you, especially if it's not like a big deal, right? And it's like, we got a client. They said they want to buy a $10,000 domain, $25,000 domain. It's not something I'm looking to spend the next month of my life on. I knock on your door and I say, hey, you got this domain. I don't see it's priced anywhere. I've got a buyer. They're offering 10 grand. There might be some room. And, you know, you're like, yeah, I don't know. It's just not enough. I don't know if I want to. It's like, you know what? I'm going to give them 5 other names that are comparable or better I already know are within their budget. And you're just shit out of luck. Like, you know, I'm your golden goose. I showed up. Today's Tuesday. It's your day. Tell me the price. Like, and let's see if we can both make some money. If you want to be evasive, like, you know.
It's just not smart business. So
yeah, waiting till after.
Get ready for your golden goose. Yeah, and we do hear a lot of folks who say, well, I had a $50,000 offer in 2015, so therefore it's worth $75 now. And it's like, no, don't miss the one chance you've ever had on selling your domain, especially if you've never had other offers or never had any other offers that are anywhere near that comparable price. Now, going back, David, you are a masterful negotiator, I suspect, because you completely changed the subject off a mirror because of your NDA. Before we move on to Drew, we're going to give you like 20 questions. So you mentioned you had the buyer and the seller. I want to know, how long was Emir.com on the market?
Days.
Days. Okay.
I got a short list of names, marketed them, and Emir was the one that the buyer liked the most out of that list.
Okay. Drew and Shane, feel free to jump in with your 20 questions. So if you got a short list of domains, David, does that mean you had a seller trying to raise capital?
In this case, it wasn't as much raise capital as names. It's funny. I mean, Drew touched on it, nailed it really. Names that this guy had for a decade or 15 years, and all good names, with intentions of building them into a company or doing something with them, and he just hadn't. And he had really kind of decided he wasn't going to develop any of those into companies, and it was time to admit that and then consider selling one or some of them. So I had the chance to bring that list out, shop it around a little bit. And so that's what happened with that one.
Nice. Well, I do see it here in your newsletter from January 14th. Does that mean the other names are no longer on the market?
They are probably still on the market. Drew, if you want to look at that list. I was surprised I didn't hear from you.
I'm just actually looking it up, and I don't.
I'll forward it to you. But January 14th.
Are there prices on that list?
Busy. Yeah, those are good names. All right. Any other questions, Drew? Shane,
I don't have that list.
You will in a minute. Check your inbox, buddy.
Yeah, but
were there prices on that list?
Normally, I get.
Okay.
I get your newsletter, Dave.
Yeah, mine stopped coming too. Travis always sends them to me. I have to re-sign up.
I'll be honest. I did a calling for submissions before NamesCon, and the names were so bad. I got so frustrated. I didn't send out a newsletter. They were. I didn't want any of you to see the names and even read them. The names were so bad. With so many dot, and I don't want to pick the keynote, the main sponsor of the show here. Dot solar domain names. I didn't even do a newsletter for NamesCon. It's first time ever. First time I think I've been to a trade show.
Do you have a newsletter sign up on your website?
What's that?
He does.
I can't find it.
I think you got to scroll down.
I got to fix that. Thanks for
contact us, but I don't see the newsletter sign. Oh, here, way down. Okay.
It's way down. Yeah, and actually, you know what? Emir was never put on the website.
All right. So that sounds like a good sale, that everybody got a good deal, got what they needed. And that's a great thing about the liquidity of domains, isn't it?
It really is. And it's funny because I only had one person approach me to buy it. If I'd had 20 people approach me to buy it with a fixed price at the level I was asking, I would have felt like I did a disservice to the seller. Or, sometimes a seller somebody will say, I want to raise money today, right now. This price should do it. Send it out. Yep. But I feel like, if I get 20 people that say I'll take it, then obviously it was priced wrong.
Yeah.
Or it was priced right.
What's that?
Or it was priced right.
Or right, depending on the buyers. I mean, it's really cool, interesting. You said that, of the top 10 people you could think of, or 10 friends in the industry, they overlap a little, but they all make money different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are so many different people in this industry that do well, that really don't overlap, that have different models. So I learned something about you, Shane. I honestly, for some reason, hadn't really placed you as the 5L guy. And that's going to stick.
I've been a couple
things. Going SHANE. That's going to stick. If I have any 5Ls wholesale, you'll be the first person I email.
Yeah, no,
we could develop a jingle for that, Shane.
I got a couple jingles already, but they had curse words in them, so they didn't make the play.
Gotcha. Mike Seiger's children, thank you. All right, Drew, what's new? What'd you buy or sell lately?
So I'm going to flip that whole conversation on its head, and I'll just leave it at that. So I bought ALR.com.
All right, ALR. And before
there's a catch to this, but I want to see if anybody actually gets it before I say anything else.
All right, Shane, David, what do you think he paid for it?
Let David go.
I mean, the first thing I'm looking at is American Law Reports, and I'm wondering how big that is. I mean, I really like it because all of those letters are like Wheel of Fortune letters, RST, LNE. You've got L and R in there. They're super common letters. R is the most common in English. I mean, and I know you'd want to buy it to consider flipping it, is my guess. But I think that one's probably safe at $40,000 buying it. I mean, and I might be high for where you tried to place it. You might have paid a little more. I haven't really shopped 3Ls recently, so hopefully I'm close. I'll stick with 40,000.
I have a question. I like that RST, LNE, Wheel of Fortune letters.
The Vanna White thing, right?
Yeah.
When I started in this business more than 10 years ago now, I emailed every single person from AAA to ZZZ, 16,000, whatever.
676
cubed. So, I mean, I literally had a list I kept updated for the first couple of years I was in this, and I was probably one of the top people buying and selling and flipping 3Ls for about 2 years straight. It's how I learned the business. I learned that it didn't have to be words. I missed the Chinese market completely. Of course, I thought things with 3 consonants were worthless because if they didn't mean anything, I missed that completely. But
what year was that, David? 3 years? What years were those?
2008, 9, and 10 probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, back when you could get these things really cheap, and the stuff with Q's and Z's in it, was ridiculous cheap.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I mean, I think 40,000, but I'm sorry, I started that off with the whole RST LNE. So the Vanna White thing, Wheel of Fortune letters to me were worth more. And this is the English speaking world.
Amen.
And play the license plate game in the car on the road. The letters that are hard as hell to get are the ones that are rare, right? J, Q, W, X, Y, Z. Okay, but J, Q, and Z are hard to get. And so the way all of us priced them 10 years ago was based on how common the letter was in the English language. I mean, we just had rough numbers to work on, but that was pretty much it.
Now, does that apply for 3-letter, 4-letter, 5-letter? When does that stop? I
think for acronyms, it never stops, because if you've got the common letters, you've got more common chances of somebody's company or multiple companies fitting that acronym. But the A, it starts off with an A, so it's American blank blank. Okay, you've got and with the L and the R, I mean, heck, you're safe to spend more money on it than 40. Really, that's a great 3L. Shane, what do you think?
Well, I'm feeling good because Travis and I bought SWR not too long ago, and I'll tell you why we like the R is real estate, realtor. That's the R at the end. That's the first thing that comes to mind with the R at the end. And not getting too far off, but when I first came in, I was 4-letter because I didn't have enough for 3-letter. And there was a blog called 4-Letter Noob by Reese Berg. And it was one of the most, if not the most read website on domains. And he just made it a mathematical formula. He said, these are the good letters using the Wheel of Fortune. These are worth this many points. These are worth this many points. And you can calculate the value of an acronym based on points and come up with a good or bad pretty quickly. And he talked about, he got it down to mathematics, that these are worth this much. And if you saw this, and for me, it really, as a trader, it became kind of like a commodity when you saw a domain name based on it. So I was really interested in it. And you could still hand reg 4 letters. In 2008, 2009, you could get a 4letter.com for $8 if it had bad letters on it. But my email, bgum.com, was my first hand reg. It's been my email ever since then. But I just picked it up for nothing. So, but that was back in the day. So back to the name. Since you're a buyer, I think his number is right there, but you're going to tell me some story how it's an ancient medicine that's highly traded in the black market, and that Saudi princes, emirs will pay millions of dollars for this because it's a slice of a ham that you can only get on certain days of the year. So I'm going to say, I'm going to be right there. I'm going to say 35,000. I think that you paid 35, but I'm going to find out why it's worth a lot more in about 2 seconds.
All right.
So, and you acquired it, right? Now that we've been talking so long. Okay.
Yep.
Tell us all about it. Acquiringalr.com.
So I paid $65,000, which is totally ludicrous and nonsensical and irresponsible. However, it's my initials. Andrew Lawrence Rosener, ALR.com. And I've been trying to buy it for the better part of a decade, if not longer. And I never knew who owned it. And coincidentally, Greg Ricks had just, this is 2 weeks ago. He just started pricing. It comes back to the conversation we were having about buy it now. So Greg Ricks has his own marketplace. The name escapes me at the moment, but he just started pricing some of his names, which never had buy it now prices. Like occasionally he would put a buy it now on them. If somebody had inquired and then, he gave them a price, he'd put a buy it now on there. Sometimes he'd increase them, sometimes he'd remove them. But he went in and he started just in bulk adding buy it now prices. And immediately he just started selling names like duck. And I don't remember. I think I bought a name for a client. So somebody hired us to buy a name. I went in. We got the name from Greg at like a very reasonable price. And Greg said, hey, if you're looking for more names, I'm pricing my names. And I said, well, what you got? And he said, well, just go to the marketplace, look at here. And so I clicked on the 3letter.coms, and the first freaking name that's there is ALR.com. Now, I was like, what? And I'm thinking, he doesn't even own that anymore. He probably sold that years ago, and it's just still in there. So I literally go in the who is, and I'm like, yeah, it's, same privacy. It's been under forever. And I was like, son of a bitch, this guy owns it. So I was like, Greg, this is my initials. Do me a deal. And he doesn't. He's like, I'm raising the price. So, and
masterful negotiation technique.
Never say you like the trinkets at the market.
I was like, there's going to be some brotherly love. But anyways.
You identified yourself as an end user.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I've already given myself the reputation of being irresponsible and irrational when I want something. So anyways, the key is, though, to know when I really want something, because if I don't really want it, I'll just cut your ass off. So anyways.
Is his marketplace perfectname.com?
Yeah, it could be. So anyways,
Could be anything.
he got me. He just got me.
He got you good.
Well, I mean, that's not one you're ever going to sell. And
that's why it's irrational and irresponsible. Because
I can't believe I didn't place it, because you even said, see if you guys figure it out. I mean,
you told me, the crazy part is you told me you bought it, and you told me why you bought it in a conversation. I still didn't remember. That shows how much I'm listening, Drew. Sorry.
Thanks a lot. Noted.
And I even asked you what your middle name was to figure it, and you told me, and I've already forgotten that too.
Well, he just said it a minute ago. You got to watch the show now, Shane.
Oh, my God. I'm getting old.
Okay, now I really feel bad, because if you said it a minute ago, I don't remember it already.
No, he didn't say his middle name.
We haven't even finished the show. He didn't say it.
He did. I will replay it.
I said the full name. I'm not repeating it. One and done.
You were in the middle of being shocked with knowing that was his initials when he said it. So your brains weren't.
Thank you. I mean,
I don't remember till the third time. So when I rewatch
That's how magic tricks work. You dazzle them with something, and then you do the sleight of hand, and then they don't even know.
Well, I can tell you that it wasn't a name that I giggled about for weeks. Like Lorenzo or something. Not that that's a bad name, but that's not a name I saw.
All you Lorenzos out there.
Yeah, no. If you have a Lorenzo, it's a completely fine name.
That's pretty funny. Wow. Well, that's really interesting. Drew, thank you for sharing that on the personal end, because, we're all professionals, but we have our personal preferences for domains too. I bet
some rational argument for that purchase, even if it's only for my own good. I will say this. Two things. One is I'm putting my money where my mouth is, right? I believe in domains. I believe these are very valuable assets. I could just as easily go buy a can of paint and write ALR above my front door, but I'm spending $65,000 to buy a domain name with those initials. So, I believe in these assets. I don't know if I will use it or what I'll use it for. Probably I'll create an email address. But there is something to be said about owning it and having that option. I've essentially bought an option. And, in 5 years, if, as some people say, our domain names become our bank account, our identity, our, travel document, if everybody's got a domain and it's some infallible way of managing and identifying everything that we do in the digital world, well, then I'll be really glad that I've got ALR.com, and I can promise you that, all these three-letter.coms will be a heck of a lot more valuable because there's way more than 16,000 millionaires in the world, that in the very least, those folks will say, oh, I want to own my three-letter initials, right? Never mind. Then the billionaires will want their two-letter initials, and the rest of us schmucks will, end up with the leftovers. We'll be on .xyz. So, so I think there's some legitimacy to that, and I think having a professional email address, even as a individual that's unrelated to your business, shows a degree of professionality, of seriousness. It makes an impression. It's like wearing a nice suit to first time you meet somebody. It makes an impression. So when they see an email address and it's, whatever. I have a story about email addresses and the importance, but I'll save it.
Well, for your nice suit, Drew, I'm just going to take your sweatshirt hoodie there, and I'm going to get our producer to just write ALR over it in tuxedo.
I'm going to start putting ALR on everything.
Yeah.
It's like when I bought Drew, when I finally bought Drew.com, I decided I'm going to just I've kind of always, when I was younger, I always went by Drew with all my friends. And then when I started my professional career, for whatever reason, I thought it sounded more professional to be Andrew. And so I started using Andrew, and then that just became what I used with everybody. And I just always said Andrew. And then when I bought Drew.com, I was like, nah, forget it. I'm going back to Drew. I'm going to just be Drew.
Good for you. Well, it's better than at least, some people check what's available when they're deciding on naming their kid. So I'm glad you went about it the other way. First, serious about online trading? Secure your funds, keep your merchandise safe, and use a company that keeps the buyer and seller protected the whole way through. That's escrow.com. Payments you can trust. Hey, let's get to the next section of the review. This is a little different. Our investor submitted domain names. I really appreciate that we had a donation to the Fred Hutch Cancer Research. And Jim, who, I'm very sorry, Jim, I'm looking for your last name. I don't have it in front of me.
Jim Carlberg.
Jim Carlberg, thank you. So Jim Carlberg sent over 5 .com domains with a very specific question. So he already owns and operates liquidrugby.com, which sells rugby apparel. Rugby is the fastest growing sport in America. So he's wondering with these domains, which he has 4 trademarks associated with them as well. So he's rather invested in this space. Should he hold them? Should he sell them? Or should he develop them himself for his own rugby business? So we have, I'm just going to read them for our podcast users since there are only 5 domains. Rugbygirl.com, rugbysince1823.com, islandrugby.com, rugbyshirts.com, rugbybrand.com. What do you guys think? We're starting out with you, David. No pressure.
Okay. Since this guy's definitely watching the podcast, I like rugbyshirts.com the best out of the group. I think that's the one that makes the most sense. I think that's the one that could be turned into a site selling something. And actually, I've got some rugby shirts from a couple different rugby events I've been to, which were kind of cool. I don't know, and you guys know me. I mean, I'm not afraid to develop a domain name. I think that he should try developing it. I don't know that I would keep rugby or think Rugby Girl is going to be as much of a fit or bite, but I also don't know what women apparel market looks like in the rugby space. So, I mean, I would actually look at that one also, because he might end up with a surprise brand that really takes off. But you've got to try, the step past Etsy, right? If he's really invested, he's got the trademarks, the names after Panda and Penguin, the names aren't worth as much unless they're developed, if they're keyword names. So my thinking would be, at least in the short run, 6 months or a year, I would suggest he tries to develop at least those 2, and maybe piggybacks any traffic from the others to one of those 2 URLs. But that's kind of my thinking off the cuff, without looking at the rugby market or what sales might be for that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, good info. What do you think, Drew?
So I like rugbyshirts.com a lot. I mean, that's if you're in that market, I mean, that's a no-brainer. In high school, I'm sure that's not the case today, but in high school, when I was in high school, where I lived, like that was like the cool shirt to wear was rugby shirts, the long sleeve, it's like a long sleeve polo. And, but the real heavy material, I like it. I used to play rugby till I fractured my skull and I looked like Quasimodo. Rugby shirts to me, great name. If you're in that business, it's a no-brainer. Develop it out, e-commerce. You've got the inventory, the fulfillment, no-brainer. Rugby brand looks like it's even got a little bit of traffic. I would be careful that there's not some kind of trademark infringement there, but you're probably good. You're probably okay. Other than that, I don't like it. I mean, Island Rugby, I could easily see that being a brand of rugby. But based on the fact that there's only 46 searches a month for Island Rugby, I'm guessing there is not an existing brand out there. So unless you're looking to create a new brand, I don't know what you're going to do with that name. I don't think it's got any value. Rugby since 1823, no value. Nobody's searching for that. Doesn't give you any brand value. That's just let it go. Rugby girl, this guy's in a different situation. He's not necessarily looking at it from a domain investment standpoint. If he was looking at this from a domain investment standpoint, the only domains I'd keep are Rugby Shirts and Rugby Brand. But, as he's in the business, and we're only talking about 5 names here instead of thousands of names, I think Rugby since 1823, you're pretty safe to just cut that loose. Nobody wants that name, including you. Island Rugby, for $9 a year, probably just keep it. I mean, I don't think the name has any value. I don't think it has resale potential unless somebody suddenly decides they're going to launch a company called Island Rugby. But it's probably, if you're an operating business, it probably makes sense for $9 a year to keep that name. And probably the same goes for Rugby Girl, maybe. But I don't necessarily love that name. Sounds more like an Instagram user handle or something. But Rugby Brand looks like it's got some type-in traffic. So if you're in the business, there's free traffic, $8 a year, $9 a year. Even if it's one person a day, that's 365 people. If you're converting 2%, which you should be, or at least, that's 6 paying customers a year. You're making more than $9. And I think he's got more traffic than that. So Rugby Brand, is a great little funnel for your business. Rugby Shirts should be developed. That's all I got to say about that.
Thank you. I also think rugby traditionally is very British. And in looking it up a bit, it seems like Hong Kong and, probably with that influence has a big rugby interest growth following.
All the Commonwealths are huge. I mean, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Hong Kong, all the Commonwealths are huge in rugby.
Yeah. So just throwing that out there, there's a little Asian market interest, and it's the fastest growing sport in America. So in case that anybody wants to contribute something more with that little tidbit. Shane, you're up. What are your thoughts on these?
All right, so two viewpoints. One's a domain investor, which is a domain investing show. So for me, it's the 3 names. Rugby Shirts is a killer name. That when you think of rugby, you're only going to sell uniforms, you're going to sell balls. So that's your 2 choice. And I think shirts is, maybe it comes around again. Like Drew said, in the 80s, it was a huge fashion trend. You would have killed it back then. And maybe that'll come around again. And I like Rugby Girl. I mean, I think it's women clothing and fashion is a huge market. You don't have to have very much percentage of a market. So having a Rugby Girl brand, I think that's a great name. And women do play rugby. I'm a huge Sevens fan. I love Sevens rugby. That's one of my favorite sports. It's fast. It's hard hitting. It's a great sport. So I do pay attention. So I think Rugby Girl and Island Rugby, and I say Island Rugby because Fiji and All Blacks is probably one of the best teams in the world, and it's an island. And so Islanders are rugby players. They are the best. Some of the best players in the world are from Ireland. So I think that makes a good brand. So a domain investing, those names are absolutely worth owning and keeping. The other ones are him. Those are names for him. Nobody else in the world cares about when rugby was founded. I'm assuming that's what that means. Rugby Brand, I'm sure it can be something, and there's traffic, so maybe it's worth keeping. But from a domain investor, it doesn't mean anything to me. But from a build-out standpoint, I think he's got a great market. I mean, rugby shirts do sell. The BS about it being the fastest growing sport is only because the bar was set so low that rugby in the United States is like lacrosse and field hockey. There are people playing it, but it's not as, it's always the big guys that couldn't move in football or something. I don't know that it's ever going to be super huge like soccer is here. But it's a big market. And rugby shirts, he should be killing it. He should be building that one out. Forget all his other brands. Put rugby shirts out. Find the rugby shirts. And you're going to make enough money that all those other names are inconsequential to his portfolio. They'll just be marketing names. And then if he wants to take that money and build a brand out that fits a little bit better for women like they have in pro football, then, he's got a good business model ahead of him. So I think he's ahead where a lot of domain investors are, that he's niched it and he's got a good niche. And I think he's going to do quite well with it if he does it right.
Thanks, Shane. Good to know. Hey, so if he did sell those names, the two that you mentioned, what should he sell them for? Island Rugby and Rugby Girl.
Rugby Girl doesn't have a ton. Yeah, those don't have a ton of value at all. I don't think.
No value.
A couple $1,000s a piece. Now, rugby shirts, that can be quite a bit of money. I mean,
what price would you buy it for, or what would you recommend he sell it for?
I think if you want to get in that market, you should pay at least $10,000 for that name. I mean, that's a huge name. What better name can you buy for rugby shirts than rugby shirts? I mean, I can't think of a brand that would. And I don't know rugby well enough, but you think of some other word, like you sell football stuff, you can sell first down, or there's terms. Rugby, I'm sure there are terms I don't know about, but I think rugby shirts is as strong as you're going to get.
Yeah, rugby shirts. David, what would you recommend he list that at if he sells it, just the domain?
I mean, that's one of those names that really, to get the most money out of it, you almost have to have somebody approach you. I think
if someone approached him, what do you think he should price it at?
I think Shane's right. I mean, the 10,000, 15,000 range would be the target. It's such a specialty market, and there, like Drew pointed out, I mean, being a .com, there are Commonwealth countries are interested in it, but there aren't a lot of people in the U.S. compared to the other sports. I mean, that thing might get listed out there for sale at 8,000 and not sell. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, if it's shopped to the right company and they get the right use case, they might pay 20,000 for it.
Okay, so when you get a buyer,
there's a big range.
Make sure you close it, because you're not going to get another one for a long time. I definitely
think it's the best name out of the group, and it's the one that if he doesn't have to sell, that's the one you sit on, and hopefully you get the right buyer at $10,000, $20,000 to sell it. But I think if he tried to sell it quickly, $6,000 to $8,000 sells it quickly, probably. But that's with a week.
All right, thanks, David. Drew, Island Shirts. What would you recommend he price it at?
Zero value. I mean, the only name that has any value.
Sorry, I said the wrong one.
Yeah, rugby shirts. I think they're spot on. I mean, I think wholesale, it's liquid for $5,000, and I think an end user you could get 15 to 25 if you got the right guy.
Fabulous. All right, guys. Thank you very much. This was super interesting. Jim, thank you for your donation to Fred Hutch and for sending over this interesting, different kind of question. I thought it was great. Sherpas, thank you. We're going to take a moment. I'll tell you about our sponsors for today's show who support us in our mission to educate folks in the domain name industry.
First, serious about online trading? Secure your funds, keep your merchandise safe, and use a company that keeps the buyer and seller protected the whole way through. That's escrow.com. Payments you can trust.
So next, we'll move on to the marketplace list. This segment is sponsored by NameJet. We're reviewing 20 domains that are currently on auction, and this is a little different, just ever so slightly from what we usually do. These are names that are all part of the NamesCon online auction, which continues until February 13th. So at the time of selection yesterday, which will be a week prior to when we air this show, so on Monday, February 4th, these names had 0 to 1 bids, but we thought they were worth discussing on the show today. So primarily.coms, we have several, alternative TLDs, Chinese.restaurant, video.rentals, ny.taxi, but mostly .coms, websurfing.com, yourdate.com, shock.me. So we have a variety here. So Drew, you're up first on this. What names do you like on the list? What do you recommend for a newer investor to try to acquire? or stay away from? And what price points do you think these ought to sell at?
Okay, so there's not a lot on here that I would say, is my cup of tea. Like there's not many names on here I'd like to purchase. But that being said, there are some decent names in here. I think, as far as the .coms go, I'm not really seeing anything I like. It's really, mariachis. Okay, I like mariachis.com because number one, it's actionable. You can make a little business out of it. Nobody's retiring on mariachis.com, but, there's a business there. There's somebody out there, who can create a booking service for mariachis. I saw a guy on Shark Tank raise a bunch of money. He can organize you a Santa Claus on his website. I think the same thing can be done for mariachi bands. It's very popular that people organize and rent mariachi bands. In Mexico, it's extremely expensive. In the U.S., it's not. And and the reason it actually popped out, like I normally probably wouldn't even though I say yes, it's a business, you can do something with it, it's actionable. It wouldn't have popped out at me because the search volume is relatively low. It's like 7,000 searches a month. But it has a overture score of 57, meaning there's real type-in traffic to this name. So my guess is it's getting, between 30 and 75 type-ins a day. And so that means that when you when you open your door for business, you've got customers on day one. So for whatever reason. So I like that name, and I can't imagine what anybody's doing on mariachis.com unless they're looking for a mariachi band. So, it's probably pretty targeted traffic. Although maybe Shane has some other ideas about what people do on.
I see.
Other than on the .coms, that's the only one that I'm even slightly interested in personally. But I'll tell you what. As negative as I am on new GTLDs as for the average investor today, I really like Chinese.restaurant. Pretty much only because I'm biased and I'm like obsessed with Chinese food. But Chinese.restaurant, to me, you're talking massive search. I'm not encouraging anybody to go out and try and compete with Yelp or, Open Table or any of that stuff. I mean, it ain't going to work. Forget about it. But you can do something with Chinese.restaurant. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just free Chinese food for life with your local Chinese guy. But, either way, I can't imagine that name's going to be that expensive. And so if you can pick that up relatively cheap, it's got a future in something. I don't know what or why, but, it's a Chinese restaurant. It's like, so I like that one. Rental property is a name I'm going to talk about on sort of the negative side. So I like rental property, but I think it's one of those, what do you call it? I have that nickname I give these things. False friend. You say, oh, rental property. Well, VRBO and Airbnb, there's a massive market. But the people searching for rental property are investors who want to buy rental properties that they're going to then turn around and rent out. And the people that search for vacation rentals search for vacation rentals, not rental.property or rental property. So don't confuse your audience, or don't confuse who the end user is on this name. The buyer for this name, that's a B2B business. That's not a consumer-facing business. And so they're not going to pay a huge premium. This domain is not as important to somebody in the rental property market as it is as vacation.rentals is to the guy trying to sell vacation rental, or book, compete with VRBO, for example. So, on the surface, that looks like a great name. And it is a good name, but I think it's a hard sell for top dollar. because it's primarily B2B and it's investors. These are primarily value investors. And so I don't think anybody's shelling out top dollar for that one.
Do you think there are a lot of false friend type domains? Do you see that?
I see it all the time. You know, a perfect example is the word weed, right? We talked about this at NamesCon last week on one of the panels. I don't remember when. And if you've got something with the word weed in it, well, then that domain better be consumer focused, and it better be focused on the lower market consumer, because it comes with a stigma. And if you're trying to be somebody who's B2B, the word weed comes with a stigma that people are trying to stay away from, because for regulatory purposes, for marketing purposes, for image purposes. And if you're trying to target B2B and you're called weed, you're going to have a problem, you know, or you're trying to sell a domain that's weed, you know, I don't know, weedshop.com, you know, whatever. I don't know. Weed shop would be consumer facing, so that's okay. But if you want to, you know, yeah, I don't know.
Say that again?
Exactly. Weed Pal.
Weed House.
Yeah, Weed Pal. We're going to be Weed Pal, and we're going to be the payment processor for the cannabis industry. Well, no, you're not. You know, you're screwed from day one. Nobody wants to work with you. And if you're trying to sell weedpal.com and you think, oh, this could be the next, you know, PayPal for the weed business, you're also wrong. You're dead wrong. That name's got no value. Nobody's going to buy that name. So, yeah, that's, you know, another example of false friends.
Good to know. Good to know. Thanks.
Know who your audience is.
All right. Well, you are a good friend to share that. Thanks. Shane, what are your thoughts on this group here?
Okay, well, this is the reason why I didn't make any money in parking at all, because I'm just, without being negative, I'm just not a huge fan in generics when it comes to branding your company. As a business owner and a marketing person, you're always trying to build a brand. Maybe it's related to what you're doing, but it's short and memorable. And so a lot of these names, unless it's a killer product within that, I just don't want to be part of it. And I'm also scared to death of losing my customer to the right .com or something they're going to remember more. So for instance, like on rental property, like you said, if you're in rental property and you're going to spend millions of dollars on rental property, are you going to buy rental.property and lose potential customers over the dot? I know that there's the other side of that, and maybe that's me being naive for the future, but the reality is if I'm a brand and I'm in millions of dollars deep, I'm not going to save $10,000 on a name and go with rental.property for mine. Maybe marketing as an addition to what I'm doing. So when we use the term marketing domains, that's buying a lot of other additional names to try and get them to remember it or to attract them or pick a segment within our market and bring it back. But it's not the major focus of our company. So I just, you know, Chinese restaurant, if I'm a Chinese restaurant, maybe that's part of it. But even that, I'm going to try and get them to remember, and I don't want to be racist and spell out a name or anything, but, you know, like Yong's Chinese, or just something that they're going to remember. That's why they have the fun names, because you remember those fun names, like Walk This Way or something like that. You know, I remember the restaurant because you remember Walk This Way.
Yeah, but the Chinese restaurant called Walk This Way isn't owned by a Chinese guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wait. So the Vietnamese restaurant down the street from here that's called Pho King Kitchen? No
That's
joke.
not a real name, is it?
Yeah, for real. It's right down the street. Next time you're in Phoenix, let me know.
And you remember it. That's.
Oh yeah, my kids remember it.
Yeah. So that's what branding's all about. So a lot of these names to me don't brand well. And I hate, you know, again, I hate to be disparaging, because to some people these are fine, but I don't even think that's how you spell cafeterias. If you look at it, we've got it spelled, either we spelled it wrong or it's a foreign spelling, CAFA. That's not how you spell cafeterias. So, and that's another thing. Are they going to spell it right anyway? Do I want a name that people are not going to know how to spell? Mariachis is by far my favorite for all the reasons Drew said. You're going to book mariachis for lots of different reasons, and that's a good name, and I think they could spell that name. And I think the plural probably works, because you want just instead of one guy sitting there. Although they do call it a mariachi band, not mariachis, but I think it works. That's my favorite.
And clearly, if it has that type-in traffic, somebody's calling it that.
Yeah,
now,
no, I think that one works really, really well. I like I like race.info. People constantly type that in looking for races coming up, but I get scared of losing it to Race Info, which looks like it was built in 1987 for horse racing. I think you have a better chance of acquiring that from that company and using that in addition. I hate to lose traffic and hate to be or I shouldn't say handcuffed, but held for ransom, a name that's better than me above me. I'd rather start and find a new name for what I'm going to do. Like, again, I'd be the guy that changes the name of their child rather than have to pay $160,000 for Drew.com. Zamphazaria or something where I can get the name.
What is your daughter's name, Shane?
Yeah, no, that's so again, I'm just not as, I mean, I like Booty Talk. I think everybody will remember Booty Talk, but I don't know a brand. But if I said these names aloud to a person in another room and gave them a list of 10 names and then asked them to give them back to me, I think they would remember Shock.me and Booty Talk, and Mariachis probably be the three that they came back to me with.
That would be a fun test.
I do that all the time. I'll ask my wife, I'll give her a list of 10 names, and and then 5 minutes later, I'll say, what were some of those names again? And just see what she remembers, because that's why we have domain names.
Yeah, that's the only point. That's the only point.
Yeah, that's all these are. We want them to bring back traffic, and we want people to remember it, and we want people to notice them as they're driving by at 80 miles an hour on a billboard. That's the purpose of domain names. Okay.
All right. Good to hear. Now, bulkemails.com got the highest Esterbot appraisal on this list. Neither of you have mentioned it yet. Just saying. So, David, you're up. No pressure to mention that one. But what stands out to you on the list?
I don't have the list.
Oh.
So I used your private message, and then I sent the message to everyone saying, could somebody send me the list?
Oh, yeah. All right. You got it now.
You're working on, okay, now I see it. So, I mean, what really jumped out at me, it's I've always called them almost names, but I like Drew's term better, the false friend domain names. So when Drew was talking about Chinese.restaurant, I immediately thought Chinese.restaurant.com. That's a pretty good domain name. I want to know what Drew says about it. Okay. And going back to the early days, okay, I'm not going to name any names, but I know of a group that raised, let's say, $30 million to buy domain names, and they spent $500,000 on .mobies back in the day. And, you know, the false friends to me can be after the dot, because in the U.S., even when, you know, my dad has problems with his computer, and when they first started, okay, Dad, we'll do a join.me. Joinme.com, okay, I'm there. There's nothing there. No, join.me, Dad. Joinme.com, David, I'm there. I typed it in. I'm listening. There's nothing there. And, of course, they ended up buying joinme.com, and meet.me owns meetme.com now. So fast forward to this day and age where there's so many TLDs like .restaurant or even .me's on this list. I think that the stats are strongly, overwhelmingly in my favor to say it confuses consumers. People don't type it in. And I mean, I'm sorry to anyone who's invested significantly in any of these TLDs. There a lot of them are false friends because, like, you know, Shane, you pointed out, you know, ask your wife to repeat those back. How many, you know, shock.me's would she come back 5 minutes later and say shockme.com? I liked that one the most. So on this list, I mean, it's you mentioned bulk emails, and it's funny because it's the .com on the list that my eyes go to. Which one is? See, mariachis is a .com. If that's spelled right, I like one word .coms. Even if it's got the S on it, I kind of like that one the most. It looks funny to me though. Is that? I mean, might just be me English only. Does mariachis have an accent on one of those letters that I'm missing? Is it a type?
Yeah, but they don't. You just ignore the accents.
What's that?
They're not
Just
the
ignore
French.
them. They're not that important.
Nah, nobody's typing the accent. Not in the domain.
Okay. So mariachis.com is actually one that I really like. You know, to people that do bulk emails, I don't know what that search term looks like. I don't know if I'm shopping MailChimp and Aweber or some of the other bigger guns out there. I don't know if bulk emails is going to be my search term. It's almost too generic. I think for somebody in the bulk email business, even like a MailChimp, to be interesting to them.
I've said it before. I'm sorry, Dave. I didn't want to.
It's okay. I mean, so I think I'm going to stick with mariachis as my favorite one on the list. And I'm going to call most of them just false friends, to steal your term there, Drew.
I just wanted to add on when you were talking about bulk emails. So in general, as a sort of rule of thumb, when it's a really super generic name like that, like just a 2-word generic, it's not a brand, it's a, it's a descriptive generic. If it doesn't have 10,000 or more searches a month, exact match searches a month, and a reasonable cost per click, it's just not interesting because, the purpose of these descriptive generics are to convert or generate leads, okay? And so converting means if you're doing like SEM, you're buying traffic from Google, and so it's not about SEO. You're not trying to get into the top of Google. You're buying that position from Google so that you're getting a percentage of that click-through traffic, and you're going to get a higher or lower click-through rate versus your other advertisers and the top organic results based on a bunch of factors, but one of them being trust, or the most important one being trust. And so if somebody's searching for something which is, let's say there's no household names, then having a really descriptive generic domain name is going to help convert that traffic. And then in categories where there is a strong brand name, like laptops, for example, then it's more about brand. And so these descriptive categories don't really do that much. Bulk emails is a category where like the professionals in the space probably already know a household name. I could see a use case for bulk emails, but the search volume is only 1,300, so it's got like virtually no SEO value. It's going to cost exponentially more to develop this website than it's going to cost than the domain is worth, and that's generally a bad ratio for me. I like to be putting all that sunk cost money into an asset that's like a big enough basin to justify that sunk cost. That just makes sense to me. So,
and this one doesn't have it.
It's got 1,300 searches a month. It's got a $3 cost per click, which is pretty good. But at 1,300 searches a month, like your addressable audience is too small for this to be an effective project. So I think you're better off finding another name.
Okay, lovelinks.com. That's great. It's a great brand. No, nobody even mentioned it.
Link would be a good brand. My gut tells me there's probably 25 trademarks out there already for it.
My gut tells me most people are looking for more than one link.
That's not a bad name, but I mean, I would pick it up for a couple $100.
Okay.
It's just too cheesy for me. It's like I don't know. In the 70s, that would convert. Today, people are just more straight up. It's like, I don't know, fucktonight.com. Like that converts. You know what I mean?
About the plural on that, Drew?
Yeah. I don't know.
There are a lot of abandoned trademarks.
Exactly. They were companies in the 70s.
And again, you have to look at it. Love Links, the reserve is $5,000 to $10,000. Are you going to pay $5,000 to $10,000 for Love Links? No. So that's why I don't really give it the time of day, because it's just not. Same with Shock Me. Shock Me, not a bad name, Shock.me, but it's $5,000 to $10,000 on the reserve. So it's out of the play of us.
Yeah. So I actually forgot about Shock Me. I kind of like Shock Me because it's like a dare. Like I dare you. You know?
Yeah, like I want to see somebody driving a motorcycle off of a bridge accidentally. That's kind of, I don't want to see it, but that's the kind of thing that would be like live leak kind of website.
Yeah.
But it's Shock.me and it's $5,000 to $10,000. So it's just it's not.
You need an end user. You want to buy that?
I want to see Shock Top buy it. The beer.
The beer.
Yeah, no, it's to an end user.
What would you buy? What would you buy Shock.me for?
$500.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
$500 to $1,000 maybe.
Okay, wholesalers.org. Anything? Nothing.
You take wholesale.org and you've got a totally different name.
Yeah, totally different name.
Yep. Wholesalers. What would you pay for it? .org.
Nothing. I don't want it. It's a liability.
I gave it to Drew for Christmas.
Oh, nice. All right. Okay. So not a lot of love on this list, but there are some great domains still on the NameJet auction list. So
yes.
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff.
Most of these are not them, but yes, there are.
I've got a question for you guys, since I didn't get a chance to ask at NamesCon. Piano.com sold for $100,000. Did you guys think did you notice that or think it was right priced or sold? It felt low to me.
Very low. Very low.
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Low. It felt so low that I went back and bought Pegasus.com off the guy who sold it.
Pegasus.com, that's a good one.
Since you're taking nothing for names.
You saw it. You approached the guy that used to own Piano.com.
Yeah, actually, it didn't work that way. I actually was. I didn't actually find out that Piano.com had sold for that price until I was already brokering two names for this guy, who they approached me, and so then we signed them up to sell two names, but they had already. Brent had already taken him to the cleaners on Piano.com, and there was a couple others. And
That's who ended up buying it?
Pegasus.com was not one of the names that we were brokering, actually. It was actually the guy's email address. But I was like, while we're at it.
Good job.
So
nice work. Okay, but you can still go to NameJet.com, click on NamesCon auction, then you kind of got to scroll down a little, and then you see, there are pages and pages of domains from the NamesCon auction still out there. Take a look, guys, and if there's anything you want to give a shout out to, would be nice. Freedropshipping.com. I don't know. Shane, you like some construction-y stuff sometimes. Concretetruck.com.
No. I mean, I think bride.com, if you're going to start a business, even at $1 million, is not a bad price for that name. I mean, you own bride.com, you're going to kill it. So that's one that's the high end that's still up for sale that, it's not going to be a domain investor because you're not going to take that for $1 million and sell it for $3 million. But man, if you're thinking about starting your own business, you're ready to roll. Of all the names I see there, that's in a package ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
But Piano's still up. Piano, if it's sold, then it's still at auction.
I just saw that.
No, it didn't sell.
Yeah.
It didn't hit reserve, right?
That's what I thought.
No, it was listed as sold, I thought, at $100,000, but it is still on that list now.
It sold to $100,000 to the guy who listed it in this auction.
Oh, so the guy who put in the auction bought it for $100,000.
Yeah, maybe that's not public information. I thought it was because Dave knew that he paid $100,000, that it sold for $100,000.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I saw the sold list; it was on there. So
he just tried to put it right back up.
No, I don't think it's sold. I don't think it hit reserve.
I don't think so either, because we would have been in the list. It would have been right up there with stock. Everybody would have been talking about it as
Right.
the buy of the day. I'm almost positive it didn't sell.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think so.
The
I
other
missed-
one I see on there, Tess, to give the shout out to NameJet here is drone.com is still on there. I think that's an end user name, but I think that's a monster name for the right company to get, because those things, they're only going to become more common, more used. They've got such smart tech on the newer ones now. You can't run them into a wall with some of the technology, because they can sense the wall and they'll start backing up before you run into the wall.
Yeah.
They almost fly themselves with some of the new tech that they've got.
The problem is the plural. Now, it's a great name, but if I'm selling drones, I want drones, I think. I mean, I think drone works, but I think my wife's
there's a
company.
huge player in the space called Drone X.
Yeah.
I think they're the buyer.
Interesting. Yeah. Here's one that we featured before that has not closed. 50yardline.com. Reserve is between 5 to 10K. Only 4 bids on it. I think, Drew, maybe you are one of those bidders. That looks like a great name. I like that one.
I think that's a really cool name. That's actually, for seats at football or just about any other event that's got the 100-yard marks. I mean, those are the best seats.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? That guy came to me. I made him an offer. He accepted. Then he dragged his feet, and then he came back. And after I found out he had shopped it around to everybody and their uncle, after telling me we were going to make a deal, and came back and said, "Okay, I'm ready to move ahead now." And I told him, "Get lost. I got no time for you."
Oh boy. No love.
So I got no love for 50yardline.com. That guy can eat it.
All right. Okay.
And I'll tell you right now, he's going to eat it too.
Ooh. Last one.
I'll give him $1,000 when he comes back to me after this auction ends.
He can pay you to take it. What about this one? Balsamic.com. Reserve between 10 to 2,500 thousand. High bid is 1,300. 7 bids so far. What do you think? Balsamic.com.
Memorable, great name. If you're if you're an end user, you pull the trigger and start your brand. But if I got to flip that name and I got 10 to 15 grand on it, I'm not going to get 60,000 for Balsamic.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope NameJet still loves us. Even though they are our sponsor, we are very honest about.
Hey, you got to bring the names. You want us to review names and give, you got to bring the names. You bring me a bunch of garbage, I'm going to give you a bunch of garbage.
Well, yeah, this I might cut that.
No way.
What am I going to do with that?
That definitely is going to get cut.
Yeah. Make sure we cut out the piss break this time.
Yeah.
Last time I'm the only one that took a piss break, and they left the goddamn thing in the show. I was like, "Hey, I got to take a piss." I literally said, "Hey, pause! I got to take a piss."
Hey, from where I'm at, I saw Shane. I'm out, and then you left. I'm like, okay, this is that time.
Yeah.
That's just started laughing.
All right, let's close this thing.
All right, so. NameJet has fantastic names all the time. There are good names still on this auction. Take a look, go through it. We give you honest and constructive feedback always. But as we've said before in this show earlier today, a lot of folks in the domain space are coming at this with very different perspectives and strategies. So if you see something that works for you, go for it. This was a really interesting show. Thank you guys. We're coming to the end. I'd like to give each of you Sherpas an opportunity to share anything you have going on, personally, professionally, brokering, selling, opportunities you're looking for, shout outs. What is going on in your world? David, you are up first.
Okay, I'll be quick. Thanks for having me on the show. I've enjoyed it. I'm really doing the same thing. I mean, Brandon's is the buy side. We do more buy side brokerage than anything for domain names. So we do get approached by companies and individuals wanting a brand. We do sell domains, of course, but I'm also the rest of my day is going to be working on batteries.com. We're going to be launching a new website in about 2 weeks, 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. So, which in that world means it's probably going to take 2 months. But we're going with a new website, and we're going to try a few new things with batteries.com. So I've been pretty busy this year so far.
Fabulous. Good for you. Very cool. Shane, how about you?
Same thing. Like I said, good to be home. DSAD.com. We kind of go through every morning, put the names at auction that we really like. I'm positive about this. I mean, coming from NamesCon, it was great to see old faces, new faces. They said 40% of the people there were new. So that meant 40% of the people I had never seen before or met. So that was a great thing to see. But yeah, DSAD is where I keep it going. And like I said, I'm really excited about the names coming forward. And it's paying off. Our investment over the years, if you're still in it, you're going to be just fine. If you've been in it for 10 years and you bought just semi-decent names from 10 years ago, you're doing just fine right now. So I'm really happy that I'm doing just fine right now.
Thanks, Shane. Good. Glad to hear it. How about you, Drew? Are you just fine right now?
I am just fine right now. All good. All good in the hood. I'm very, very happy with how NamesCon went. We had phenomenal. That was our first live domain Sherpa since taking it over from Michael Seiger, and I think it went extremely well. I had a lot of great feedback. I was also pleasantly surprised to see the number of newcomers into the domain industry. I think if we're all doing our jobs properly, we keep that pie growing. And all in all, I'm very excited and bullish on 2019. It's been a great start to the year. I went into the NamesCon with a little bit of a feeling like most of the industry was sort of pessimistic. And I was very surprised to find that I think the majority of folks I spoke to at NamesCon and the overall vibe was extremely optimistic. Mm-hmm. Everybody who had great domains in 2018 had the best year of their careers. Everybody I spoke to, I mean, people that have been doing this for 20 years, had the best year of their life. And so I think that's going to carry over into 2019. I think there's even some new stimulus that will further enhance that trend in domains. We're going to see, prices go up on the on the top names. I think you're going to see increased competition. I think we're going to see more consolidation. I think all these things are good.
But still, congratulations on both of you on winning Broker of the Year. And I say Broker of the Year, to me, that's we used to have this voting thing where everybody would vote for Broker of the Year. No, the numbers don't lie. This year, Escrow gave it out to the team, I should say, because it was a team that did the most in sales. So you guys earned it this year. You killed it, and the number one team is also the Domain Sherpa team. So congratulations to you too.
Drew, congratulations. I mean, I know where the bar was at my level, so you definitely killed it in 2018.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hey, congratulations to you too.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's nice when the people that you deal with are all on that same level. That means you're dealing with professionals and people that are getting it done. So
hey, it means you're doing something right. You know what I mean? That
exactly.
You want to surround yourself with the people that you want to be.
And there were smiles all across the table. When you go out to dinner with your friends and everybody's smiling, and that's not people giving each other anything. Sure we work together. But that's just good hustle and good business sense and sticking to it. So, yeah, I think everybody should be proud. And everybody I saw had smiles on their face.
Yep, a lot of smiles.
Jane, you gave me half your lobster tail. That's the only reason I was smiling.
Well, I think I got that out of the ice, and that thing kept going deep into it. I said, man, Drew didn't buy half a lobster. He got the whole damn thing. It must have been a good year.
Oh, it was. You know, on my end, NamesCon, this was the best conference I've ever been to in terms of connections. I have so many like ideas in my head for both, you know, business plans and for networking or creating opportunities. I feel like that cartoon character with like all the different ideas and the different lines, and I'm trying to, like, I have my giant whiteboard and I'm trying to space them all out, but I love leaving a conference with that level of motivation, excitement, and energy. And maybe it's that my 45-minute flight that you're all jealous of kept that momentum going for me. But I thought it was a really great conference, and I'm excited for what will come, what will develop from this, and what will happen at NamesCon Lisbon or NamesCon Portugal. It's what, an hour and a half south of Lisbon on the beach? Is that right, Drew?
Yes.
Yeah, should be good in June. So
actually, it's northwest.
Oh, okay. All right. Because you got beach in every direction. Very nice. Well, thank you guys. This was a super fun show. We'll remind our audience, the Sherpa Network, feel free, make your comments, share it on Twitter. We really are trying as an industry to grow awareness of the domain industry and what the professionals in this industry can offer to other industries. And so I think that's a part of all of our sharing. So keep that in mind. Big thank you to Jim for sharing your portfolio, and to NameJet for submitting their domains for review and for making this show possible. And most of all, thank you to our Sherpas for taking out of your time and energy to share your experience and insights. So thank you, David, Shane, and Drew. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye.